Welcome to Cryptic Mystic Vault, where we explore the enigmatic tales and unsolved puzzles of history. Section 1. A People Uprooted, the Rohingya of Myanmar. The Rohingya are a Muslim minority group primarily residing in Rakhine State, Myanmar. For centuries, they have called this land their home. They have their own distinct language, culture, and heritage. Despite their deep roots, the Rohingya have faced systematic discrimination and persecution by the Myanmar government and some segments of the Buddhist majority. They are denied citizenship under the 1982 citizenship law. This effectively renders them stateless in their own land. The Rohingya people have been subjected to a long history of violence and oppression. They are often viewed as illegal immigrants from Bangladesh, despite their long-standing presence in Rakhine State. Their plight has been recognized by human rights organizations worldwide. The United Nations has described them as one of the most persecuted minorities in the world. Their existence is marked by fear, uncertainty, and a constant struggle for survival. The Rohingya are denied basic human rights. These rights include freedom of movement, access to education, and healthcare. Their lives are confined to overcrowded camps and villages. There, they face severe restrictions on their daily activities. They endure dire living conditions. The Rohingya are a resilient people. They have endured decades of oppression, but their spirit remains unbroken. They cling to the hope of a brighter future, a future where they are recognized as equal citizens in their own land. Their story is a stark reminder of the human cost of intolerance and discrimination. It is a call for action to protect the rights of all people. Section 2. A History of Persecution. The Rohingya people have endured a long and harrowing history of persecution in Myanmar. This dates back to the British colonial era. During British rule, tensions were sown between the Rohingya and the local Buddhist Rakhine population. This was often part of a divide-and-rule strategy employed by the colonial administration. After Myanmar gained independence in 1948, the situation of the Rohingya deteriorated. Successive governments implemented policies aimed at marginalizing and suppressing the Rohingya. They were excluded from the country's 135 officially recognized ethnic groups. This denied them citizenship and associated rights. Over the decades, the Rohingya have been subjected to waves of violence and displacement. Military campaigns, often characterized by widespread human rights abuses, have forced hundreds of thousands to flee their homes. Many have sought refuge in neighboring countries like Bangladesh and Thailand. The international community has, at times, condemned the treatment of the Rohingya. However, concrete action to address the root causes of the crisis has been limited. This inaction has only emboldened the Myanmar government and allowed the persecution to continue unabated. The Rohingya remain trapped in a cycle of violence and displacement, their future uncertain. Section 3. Colonialism's Bitter Legacy. To understand the roots of the Rohingya crisis, one must delve into the complexities of Myanmar's colonial past. British rule in Burma, as it was then known, sowed the seeds of division and conflict that continue to plague the nation today. The British administration implemented policies that exacerbated existing ethnic and religious tensions, often favoring certain groups over others for economic and political gain. One of the most significant impacts of British colonialism was the large-scale migration of laborers from India to Burma. This influx of migrants, including a significant Muslim population, led to demographic shifts and competition for resources. The Rohingya, with their own distinct identity and history in Rakhine State, were increasingly seen as outsiders by some segments of the local population. The British policy of divide and rule further aggravated tensions. By exploiting existing divisions between different ethnic and religious communities, the colonial administration aimed to maintain control and prevent any united opposition to their rule. This strategy, while effective in the short term, had devastating long-term consequences for intercommunal relations in Burma. The legacy of colonialism continues to cast a long shadow over Myanmar. The arbitrary borders drawn by the British, the manipulation of ethnic and religious identities, and the systematic exploitation of resources all contributed to the deep-seated grievances and mistrust that fuel the Rohingya crisis today. Unraveling the complexities of this past is essential to understanding the present and working towards a more just and equitable future for all of Myanmar's people. Section 4. The 2017 Crackdown and Its Aftermath. In August 2017, the Myanmar military, known as the Tatmadaw, launched a brutal crackdown on the Rohingya population in Rakhine State. This followed a series of attacks on police posts by a Rohingya insurgent group, the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, ARSA. The military's response was swift and merciless, characterized by widespread human rights abuses. Villages were razed to the ground, men, women, and children were killed indiscriminately, and countless women and girls were subjected to horrific sexual violence. The United Nations has described these atrocities as a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. The 2017 crackdown triggered a mass exodus of Rohingya from Myanmar. Over 700,000 Rohingya fled across the border into neighboring Bangladesh, seeking safety and refuge. They arrived traumatized, destitute, and with little more than the clothes on their backs. The influx of refugees placed an immense strain on Bangladesh's already limited resources. The world watched in horror as the crisis unfolded. The 2017 crackdown marked a turning point in the Rohingya crisis. It brought the plight of this persecuted minority to the forefront of global attention. The international community condemned the violence and called for accountability. However, concrete action to address the root causes of the crisis and bring the perpetrators to justice has been slow and inadequate. The Rohingya, meanwhile, remain trapped in a protracted humanitarian crisis, their future uncertain and their hope for justice elusive.